Dotloop or DocuSign? Which one is better? Today I'm talking about Dotloop versus DocuSign for Realtors. Let's get started. If this is your first time visiting my channel, thanks so much for stopping by. My name is Carrie Jonicas and I am the proud owner and a transaction manager at Amplified Transaction Services. If you would like to learn more information about how we can help you, you can visit our website at www.amplifiedtransactions.com. Today I'm going to walk through a few statements and compare DocuSign versus Dotloop till the end because I'm going to share my favorite electronic signature platform as a transaction manager. Through the differences between DocuSign versus Dotloop. I'm going to go through different statements and compare DocuSign versus Dotloop. The first statement is it allows you to carbon copy anyone on the signature request very easily. So let's look at DocuSign. DocuSign allows you to easily copy anyone on the signature request, which helps if you're working with a transaction coordinator or if you have a client who is not on the contract but wants to be copied in on all communication. And I have this happen all the time where there's one seller that is on the contract, but two or maybe even three sellers all want to be copied in on all communication, which includes any signature requests that might go out. So DocuSign works perfectly and allows us to be able to very easily copy anyone on a signature request. This also helps if you are sending, for instance, some attorney documentation out to attorneys. So for instance, in South Carolina, there's some paperwork that the attorneys might require the seller or the buyer to complete, and I can carbon copy the attorneys or the paralegals on the file. So when the client finishes signing, it will automatically go to the paralegal or attorneys on that transaction. Let's talk about how that looks in Dotloop. Unfortunately, in Dotloop, you cannot carbon copy someone at this time. If you're working with a transaction coordinator and they have their own Dotloop account, then you can add them to the team and they will receive documents that come in through that transaction. However, they can't just receive a carbon copy of one document. And that goes with attorneys as well. So if you had attorney documentation, when the seller or buyer fills out that paperwork, it would not be able to be automatically sent to that team member. You would have to get that email in your email and then forward it over to the attorney or the other parties that need a copy of it. So it's adding an extra step, unfortunately, when you are working in Dotloop. Moving on to our next statement, you can create signature requests quickly to ensure you are working as efficiently as possible. In DocuSign, to send an addendum to one client to sign, it takes approximately 14 seconds to upload the document and apply the field and send it to the client for signature. And yes, I did actually calculate this myself and time myself how long it took me to do this. In Dotloop, for the same addendum, it will take you 30 seconds, which is a little over half the time that it took you to send in DocuSign. When you are working in real estate transactions, it's super important that you are working efficiently. The more time you are spending on little tedious things like sending a document, that is taking away from the time that you might be using to do those income producing activities. Now, of course, we're talking about seconds here, but when you look at the big scheme of things, this is one document. If you are managing multiple different transactions, this adds up over time. Say you have 10 transactions going at one time. It might add up to, even more. Maybe you have 20 transactions going at one time. The more you have, obviously, the more time it's going to take. And again, that's just one addendum. You could be sending out 10 addendums per file. So that could be 100 documents or things that you're going through each of these transactions because you have so many documents that are going back and forth. So this does add up. Next statement is you can easily add initials and text to documents. In DocuSign, one of the greatest features is you're able to easily add many different fields to your documents, even when a lot of requests are required. Let's hop on over to DocuSign and take a look at what that looks like. We add some initials here. Say there was another party in here and we added another initial, and then we needed to add some text. Now, of course, we can make the text a little bit smaller, but the nice thing is you can position your initial slightly over that box without having to worry about it knocking it back and not allowing you to, which then makes it nice because then you're able to fit everything into a small area. Sometimes there's so many people that need to initial and so much text on there that it's really difficult to be able to make that change, because in Dotloop it's going to kick you out, whereas here you're able to finagle a little bit, or even at the end. So say I wanted to just have a tiny bit of text and I wanted to squeeze this next to the text. Let's just say that's all I needed to say. I would be able to position this as close to that as possible by overlapping a little. Now, of course, I could try to move this, but it doesn't work as well as being able to overlap by getting as close as possible, which is really nice to be able to save space, whereas you're not able to do that as well inside of Dotloop. Dotloop, while you can add many different fields and initials, it is very finicky. Let's head on over to Dotloop now and take a look at what that looks like. In Dotloop, if I wanted to, so say I needed to, say there was like a bunch of people that needed to initial a change or something. So say I had to do a bunch of different initials, but then there was also, I had to add text. Maybe let's do it here. If you noticed, it just said these fields cannot overlap. And so sometimes the area in which you can sign something is so small that it's really hard not to overlap the information. And if you do have to, fit it into a small little area, if you notice here, I've had to move this down. Now, of course, there's some other room here which I could move this over, I can move this up here a little bit, and then still have this on the line, depending on how many other people have to sign, or I can move them up here. But sometimes the area is so small and I can't make certain fields much smaller. Like these, I can make it really small, but obviously you still need to be able to see the person's initials. So there's a limit to how small you can make it because you need to still be able to see it, number one. And number two, you need to make sure that the information isn't getting cut off, because sometimes you end up having to go like this and then there might be a line through it, which then looks like it had been removed from the contract. So it's a lot more finicky in Dotloop. Again, as you see, you can't overlap the fields at all, whereas in DocuSign you can overlap the field. Our next statement is, text easily adjusts without having to do anything special. This works great in DocuSign. Let's head on over there and take a look at what that looks like. Feature in DocuSign works really well. If you see over on the side here where it says add text, you can actually paste or type in any information. Obviously, to add text, you're going to, on the left-hand panel, you're going to take and drag to add some text. So I'm just going to show you with the box short, with me putting some information in there and how it adjusts. If you notice, it just adjusts downward, but then gives you the option to drag and move it so it fits on the line. So it works really great in DocuSign that way, where you don't have to worry about it not fitting. You can type whatever information you want and then adjust it as you go. You can also, if you have a lot of text, of course, put in a little bit, adjust it, and then type some more text. And now you can see you know, it looks like, okay, this is not all going to fit here, but let's keep typing. And as you notice, it stays the same. You can format the text and make it smaller by going to the formatting and change it to a smaller font to see if that would keep it all on that line. Or then you have the option to cutting some of that information out and then adding another text box to put it on the next line. And then keeping that font at that 9 font. So everything still fits on the one line, and then it continues down below. So it's really nice because you can see where everything is going, and if you need to adjust, you can adjust, or it will auto adjust and still keep it all in that one box. Unfortunately, this is very finicky in Dotloop. Let's head on over to Dotloop and take a look at what this looks like. So if you notice here, I typed in some text and it wouldn't let me go any further, right? Let me just do it again so you could see it. So sometimes when you're adding text, I know this has happened to me, it's happened to other agents, is sometimes you don't realize how much text you have to type, or you assume that the boxes are going to automatically get bigger. Sometimes it does in Dotloop, sometimes it does not. So let's just... So if you notice here, like it's not letting me type anymore because the box is too small. So sometimes when I stretch it like this, it won't move and it'll bounce back. Like right now, I'm typing and it's not typing anything. Until I hit the back key, then it will allow me to start typing. So it's just a little bit more finicky. Thanks so much for hanging in to the end. My favorite electronic signature platform is definitely DocuSign for a transaction manager or even a real estate agent, realtor. It's definitely much more efficient to manage your signature requests inside of DocuSign as opposed to Dotloop. Of course, this is my personal opinion. I am not paid by DocuSign. I just use it and really enjoy it. And as you see from the statements that I went over today, there are many different reasons why DocuSign really outshines Dotloop. If you would like to learn more tips and tricks about organizing your real estate business, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next one.